Cellulosic biomass is biomass. It's predominantly made up of fibrous materials, or the plant cell walls. So examples of cellulosic biomass include like corn stalks or various fibrous grasses like switchgrass. Could be sawdust, wood. It's all primarily made up of the molecule called cellulose. Currently, almost all of our fuel comes from petroleum, and there's significant challenges associated with that. It's not renewable. So, current estimates are that if we could figure out how to take all the cellulosic biomass that's available in the United States, approximately 1 billion tons every year, and convert it into biofuels, then that could replace 30% of our annual transportation fuels. So the Great Lakes Bioenergy Research Center has the Research Experience for Teachers program, where you get science teachers who spend 7 weeks working in GLBRC labs doing hands-on research related to sustainable biofuels, and then developing labs and classroom activities they can bring back to their students. Travis came and was a participant in our program. We worked together on this biofuels research and developing a lab where students could do the same process that GLBRC scientists are doing, where they take cellulosic biomass sources and then trace the process of converting them into sugars and then ethanol.
One of the wonderful things about CB2E in terms of engagement and levels of process of materials was they could see the whole gamut of the beginnings of where that energy comes from, the inputs into that system, and then leading into kind of the tangledness of how can they pull out that energy, and that's what the whole lab is really about.
The first process is deciding what samples they want to convert, and students can decide what samples that they think will have the most potential energy in them. The next step is to do the pre-treatment stage, which involves first grinding it up and cutting it up. After that, the biomass needs to be pre-treated or boiled in this case for about 20 minutes or so. That helps loosen up the cell walls of the plants and makes the cellulose accessible for the next stage in the process. Then you can add a cellulase enzyme to your samples. The cellulase enzyme then converts the cellulose and the biomass into glucose. And then finally, when you have the glucose in your tubes, you can add a small amount of just standard baker's yeast and then go through the fermentation process. And then throughout the process, students can measure both the matter and energy transformation, so both how much glucose is being produced at each stage, and you can use simple blood glucose meters to do that. And then at the final stage, students can measure how much ethanol they produce, and there's classroom-grade ethanol probes that work really well for this purpose.
One of the things that first comes to my mind when how were the students engaged, what were they doing, what was unique, is the fact that they all had legitimate choices that they made what happened over the next week and 2 weeks theirs. They owned it. It wasn't something that was kind of put on them, all right, you're going to investigate this process and here's what you're going to do. It was, all right, I want you to think about, again, your lives, how it connects up. You make some choices on your investigation. You do a true scientific investigation that parallels, again, what's happening live in research facilities down the street in our case. And so to have them actually doing science, making inquiries and comparing and arguing with one another about results, this is all part of that part that's referenced in the article about scientific claim and fitting into this larger framework of how science operates. It's not completely happening in the lab. So we really tried to simulate that in a sense in a classroom with multiple classes, and I felt we were pretty successful. And the fact that many of them wanted to form little bioenergy clubs just on their own to continue to investigate kind of what in the world they could find that would eventually kind of connect to producing this liquid energy was just wonderful to see.